And breaking tonight, Russian-American ballerina Ksenia Karolina. This is many prisoner swaps under the Trump administration as we await the door opening and we await Ksenia Karolina coming out and touching U.S. turf and soil for the first time in a long time. This is all part of President Trump. He is a president who is dead set on getting wrongfully detained Americans home. Listen to him.
We spoke to President Putin about it, and they made a deal. They released the young ballerina, and she is now out, and that was good, so we appreciate that.
The senior national correspondent Kevin Corke is live in D.C. with the breaking information on this. Kevin, good evening.
Evening, Trace. Karolina had been wrongfully detained in Russia for more than a year, but tonight, finally, she is home, free thanks to President Trump's diplomatic outreach and, of course, that of his team at the State Department, the CIA, and a number of other agencies that, frankly, Trace, all have a hand in making things like this happen. Her boyfriend, boxer Chris Van Deerden, was unwavering in his support as we continue to watch. We want to see if she walks right down here, which is going to be a wonderful picture for her to be back home. By the way, her boyfriend is a UFC fighter. He'd gotten a lot of support from UFC President Dana White, who, as it turns out, is also very good friends with the President of the United States.
Dana White called me, and he said it's the friend or the relationship of one of the fighters for UFC or one of the fighters. And we spoke to President Putin about it, and they made a deal. They released the young ballerina, and she is now out, and that was good, so we appreciate that.
She was sentenced to 12 years in a Russian penal colony after pleading guilty to treason. Forget this, Trace, donating about $52 to a Ukrainian charity in early 2024. She's been released in exchange for a German-Russian citizen, Arthur Petrov, who was arrested in 23 in Cyprus at the behest of the U.S. as we watch these pictures here unfolding live from Joint Base Andrews. This, of course, continues a pattern by the president of bringing home Americans who were detained abroad, including Mark Fogel, who, of course, was repatriated back in February. Indeed, this return, a victory for the American family.
Of these connections, as you go back to the election and you have Dana White and the impact that he had on the election and young males coming toward the president, and he played a part in this, and it seems to kind of be this hand-in-glove operation of this president saying, we want our people back home, and we are determined to get them back home, Kevin.
And it really speaks volumes about the emphasis of the State Department under the Trump administration, again, which is not to slight the folks who had done it in previous administration, but there is a particular focus here in Washington, Trace, as you mentioned, of bringing people home, as you see all smiles, tears, just pure joy as you watch these pictures unfolding over at Joint Base Andrews. And I can add this very quickly. I know for the president himself, I've heard him say this both on record and not in maybe a large public setting, it means a lot to him to get those Americans back home regardless of circumstance, and this is just the latest in a line of Americans making their way home in large measure due to the efforts of the President of the United States.
And you talk about meaning a lot to the president. It means a lot to the families. We talk to these former families, the Fogels and so on and so forth, Kevin. And it just means the world that the government is actually looking out for its people. I want to very quickly bring in, we brought her on to talk about politics, but I want to bring in Elizabeth Pipko because she follows this kind of stuff. I mean, she's been an advocate for this type of thing. Elizabeth Pipko, when you see these kinds of reunifications and the reuniting of the boyfriend, the family, and when you see these images, what do you think, and how does this benefit the administration and its effort to continue to do these types of things?
Well, look, it benefits the administration because it is blatant. It's in front of everyone's eyes just how much President Trump and those who work in our government right now care about this country. I can tell you, Trace, I can't help but be a little emotional right now watching this. I'm thinking about my own parents coming from Russia, coming to our incredible country, and I'm just so grateful for our flag, for our country, for everything that it represents, for President Trump, and for what we have in the greatest country on the face of the earth.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, we talk about politics. I've got Jessica Milan Patterson sitting next to me as well. As you see people gathering here, Jessica, you know, Morgan Ortega's there, a former State Department person, a friend of the show. She appears a lot. Very, you know, compelled to be there in these types of situations. You see the boyfriend of the family, and, you know, you will see meetings with the president. You will see a lot of pomp and circumstance out of this. But the basic premise of all of this is to get our people home.
It's to get our people home, and it's also showing the strength that we should have on the world stage. For 4 years, we watched as America's status on the national stage, on the international stage, was diminished by the former president. President Trump is here to say, we are America, we are in charge, and we are back.
Yeah, and Elizabeth Pipko, back to you now. I think as you look at this, I think that this, it's like the astronauts coming home. It's a totally different thing, but it's like the astronauts coming home. It feels like Americana, Elizabeth Pipko. It feels to me like this is a slice of Americana that we have lost.
I couldn't agree more. It's so beautiful, and I hope right now people are watching this and they're not thinking about politics. They're not thinking about whether their team won on November 5th. The fact is America won, and America's going to keep winning now because of Donald Trump and his leadership. I hope we can all come together and experience more moments like this, where America is put first, no matter where your politics lie. It is that simple.
Yeah, and I just very briefly want to go back to Kevin Corke, who kind of started this whole thing off for us, Kevin. And you know, you look at the administration and you look at this, and they view this as a victory, not because for political reasons. They view this as a victory for this country.
They do indeed. And, you know, I was actually out at Joint Base Andrews when Evan came home from the Journal. Yeah. And again, I so appreciate what Elizabeth is expressing there. A great deal of emotion. Even among those hardened journalists who have seen this sort of thing play out before, because there is this great sense of relief, because you know how sometimes injustice plays out in real time. And to have someone be able to finally come home and to reunite with their families. And I mean it. Kiss the ground feeling good when you finally get back on American soil. And so it was an emotional night that night. This reminds me of that. I'm hopeful, Trace, that maybe she sidles up to a camera. I sure would be yelling. I can tell you that if I were out there.
Yeah, well, listen, we are going to be watching this, the live pictures, as she goes through and she gets greeted and she meets her family. And we'll keep this in the right-hand side of the screen. We'll keep the live pictures up. If news comes in, we'll bring it to you.
These are very sacred meetings. These are very private meetings. But we have nothing to hide. And I think it's good. I think it's a good, we want to be, a word you like to use, Jeff, is transparent.
Let's bring back Jessica Milan Patterson and Elizabeth Pipko to talk a little politics tonight, as well as our top story, which is the return of Ksenia Karolina. To you first, Elizabeth Pipko, I want to play some sound from President Trump on the Karolina story. Here's what he had to say about this.
Dana White called me and he said it's the friend or the relationship of one of the fighters for UFC or one of the fighters. And Dana's an incredible guy, and we spoke to President Putin about it, and they made a deal. They released the young ballerina, and she is now out, and that was good, so we appreciate that.
I mean, just can't imagine, Elizabeth Pipko, you call your friend, the president, and you say, this woman really deserves to be back on U.S. soil, and it happens.
You know, I know President Trump, so I actually can believe it. Not only is he an incredible leader, but he's an incredible friend. And obviously, with this, the two go hand in hand. The fact is, whether he knew Dana White or not, I guarantee you he would have done this because he puts Americans first, especially Americans held in horrible positions like Ksenia was held in. But the fact is, when you call Donald Trump, I didn't realize how incredible this moment was.
Yeah, Jessica, these cabinet meetings are unbelievable. You go around the table and you say, okay, what have you done? What have you done for me lately? And they give you all these list of things. Let's play some sound out of this, and I'll get your take. Watch this.
Within the next 24 hours, you're going to be seeing another huge arrest on a Tesla dealership, President.
Thousands of people have already self-deported.
We anticipate savings in FY26 from reduction of waste and fraud by $150 billion.
I've had over 100 people working around the clock to scan the paper around RFK, Senator Robert F. Kennedy's assassination, as well as Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination.
By September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic.
There'll be direct talks between Ambassador Woodcock and a top-level leader in Iran. We hope that'll lead to peace.
Friday, we're sending somebody to Mars, and we're going to bring. It's just unbelievable. It is transparency. It is also efficiency.
Absolutely. And it was almost like we got to read the emails with the 5 things that you did this week. And we've never seen this. It was a real life look into it. On top of all of those clips that you just saw, we saw a report on the Panama Canal about building ships here in America, about training sailors. There is so much that is going on in the Trump administration, and they are opening it up for everyone to see. $150 billion that they have found in savings because of Doge. This is phenomenal work by the Trump administration.
We're going to talk about Doge in a second here. Meantime, Kevin O'Leary said this on MSNBC about tariffs.
We have the upper hand right now. We have the cards. Now's the time to settle this. I'm willing to live with the volatility to get the long situation settled.
I mean, the old saying, Elizabeth Pipko, is you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. I mean, that's kind of the process here, but it seems to be going the direction they want it to be going.
It is. Look, I am so tired of hearing the complaints about these tariffs from people who I know did not support Donald Trump to begin with. And if you didn't support Donald Trump to begin with, it means you probably didn't understand why the American people did, right? The fact is Donald Trump has a plan here, and that plan is to take the power from the financial sector, give it back to the people of this country. Let's say taking it from the hedge fund manager, giving it back to the farmer. That's what Donald Trump is doing. That's what he said he was going to do, not just in 2024, but back in 2015 and in 1980. And every interview he's ever had, he has always put the American people first. Anyone complaining about it not only doesn't understand Donald Trump, doesn't understand the people of this country who put him back in that Oval Office.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Jessica, meantime, Doge, you talked about Doge, uncovered nearly $400 million in unemployment fraud. Here is the Labor Secretary. Watch.
Mr. President, 28,000 people between 1 and 5 years old have collected fraudulent payments at the tune of $254 million has gone out. And lastly, 10,000 people who have not been born yet, 15 years into the future, $69 million, and they haven't even been born yet.
You would think everybody'd be happy about this, right?
It is absolutely ludicrous. And we here in California have experienced this ourselves, right? $32 billion worth of unemployment fraud that happened here in California. That is why it is so important that Doge has come in and that they are modernizing all of the processes here in America so that we can get past this fraud. This is saving us all money, your tax dollars, my tax dollars. Everyone should be excited about the fraud that they're finding and getting rid of.
Yeah, and yet they're not, and I quite frankly don't understand it. Jessica Milan Patterson, Elizabeth Pipko, thank you for double duty tonight. We appreciate both of you.